good evening to our viewers. Welcome to the Evening Review Show. I'm your host, Matthias Aufiko. Well, the past few days, the Electoral Commission of Namibia has been making headlines. That's, of course, due to the pressure and resistance it's facing from stakeholders within the political circle, political parties to be specific, as far as the cancelled international bidding process of the printing of the ballot papers is concerned. Of course, political parties have sent the representatives to South Africa with the ECN to go and monitor the design and the printing of the ballot papers. But be that as it may, we have in studio tonight Mr. Olsen Kahiriri. He's a labor and sports consultant, also well known within the domestic political circles. Mr. Kahiriri, good evening and welcome to the Evening Review.
Good evening and thanks for having me.
Oh, indeed, a pleasure. Let's jump right into business. We've seen over the past few days, the news has been inundated with this debate and discussions around the ballot printing issue. Of course, elections is just slightly over a month away, and we're still stuck at this stage. Why are we finding ourselves where we are today as a country?
It's the sloppy actions of administrators, because one should understand that if you are a serious country, that when did we realize that we are going to election on the 27th of November 2024? We have realized this before the late president passed on. May his soul rest in peace. We were aware on the election date. Probably he was also the one who set up that date. Now, from the date that we were aware that we are going to elections, what did we do? As an administrative body called INCN. Because remember the last elections that we had, we were using the EVM machine. And the EVM machine has had issues. It went to an extent of the courts, and Dr. Itula, Panduleni Itula went to court, successfully on one side narrated his story in respect of the uncredibility of the EVM without paper trail. And the court has given ECN strict instructions, even though they did not nullify the elections. But there were instructions given. And those instructions could not allow the EVM machine to be used without paper trail. So the next alternative they had is the ballot papers. Now, if you go to the ballot papers, so by that time, when the outcome of that court proceedings was out, there was a decision of the Supreme Court. ECN was aware that they are going to have a procurement process that has to do with ballot papers.
Yeah.
From that time is now 4 years. 4 years. One, and in each year, maybe the people out there do not understand. In 1 year, there's 12 months.
Yeah.
What were they doing? For us to be told there's an emergency procurement.
Yeah. We are where we are now. Perhaps from a legal point of view, and I know you deal with many procurement-related cases in your daily work that you do. What is the next step? What is the next most feasible step? Because the election date is set. No matter how much we continue to debate on this topic, we need to find a way forward.
No. This bid was put on an open bid process. And we are dealing with ECN, which is a public institution that finds its authority of its actions to be reasonable and fair. And that we find it in our constitution, Article 18 of the Namibian Constitution, that says an administrative body's actions must be reasonable and fair. Let's pack that. Now, this procurement was put on an open bid process, which is a national bid, where everyone can take part. The question is, we are not told why ECN moved from a public bidding to an emergency bidding. Because if you put an open bidding and there's issues in respect of those bids, if you want to cancel, you must have reasons. Those reasons are stipulated. You are unable to afford the bid. There's no successful bidder in your open bidding process. There must be a reasonable reason to cancel a bid while the bid is in the process. That we are not told. Now, obviously, there were bidders that took part in the open bidding process. So they were notified that this bid is going to be cancelled for reason A, B, Z, D, Z. What you should do as a journalist, leave the office, find these bidders. They should have received that notification. What they should have done, they should have referred this intention to cancel to the review panel within 7 days from the day they were notified. Now, those 7 days are working days. So if you receive a notice of that magnitude, because it's an action, cancellation is an action that the entity has taken. Now they should have approached the review panel. If you have forfeited those 7 days, you can't go to court because it's a process. And you forego those 7 days if you have not filed an application. That's point blank.
Yeah.
And if you have not entered that door, I don't believe that there's a court that is able to listen to you. Because a high court can only take a decision or an action or help you in a case where you have exhausted internal remedies. And the review panel was created as another leeway. They are just like the Labour Commission's office. So they are between the courts. It's a quasi-judicial proceedings which deals speedily on these issues because the court is a bit complex and long and expensive, but this is the shortest way to do it. But the court can interfere into something while the review panel has not touched it. So unfortunately, if these businesses have not challenged that within the 7 days, no one can take it further. Now this was now changed to emergency.
Yeah.
An emergency in terms of Section 33 of the Public Procurement Act deals with if this country goes to war now and we want to buy uniform for soldiers, we want to buy ammunition and all these things, you go to emergency procurement. COVID instances is emergency procurement process. Printing of ballot papers is not an emergency procurement. It can't be. Maybe they are using an excuse that it's for public interest. A public interest is driven by a non-ability for you to procure in a short time frame. And remember, at the beginning of your show, I referenced you to when we were aware, which is after the court, that we'll go for ballot. So by that time, we knew that we must procure. And we were also aware when the election will take place, which is a year ahead.
Yeah.
So we knew that by this time there will be procurement. Now, why did we create an emergency? It's an action, and that action, I'm telling you, finds its authority in terms of Article 18. Now, what ECN must do is come clean to the public and tell the public that, no, the reason why we classify this on the basis of emergency is because we were all on leave for 4 years, or we were all on leave for 2 years, And we could not advertise this tender to follow the normal tender processes. But now, you cannot also classify a tender in a category that you prefer. There are rules. And according to what the ECN is saying, that is not an emergency tender. Because an emergency tender takes away the processes of the procurement and says, no, speak to Ofiku's business. That's the only business we are going to use. We are not going to go through all those hurdles. They are going to give us. And mind you, there's a difference between a public open bidding process and an emergency process. An emergency process is expensive. Because there's no 3 quotations, there's no 60 companies bidding to lower the price and what is the most expensive. And we are reading in papers something that the ECN is also not coming out clean, the value of the tender.
Yeah. They indicated it's around 6.2 million.
Is that the true reflections?
That is according to the ECN, their statement of the issue.
But Oviku, in this country, when you have successfully given someone a tender, you advertise it in the newspapers. Any tender. Did ECN advertise the tender they gave out? It must be, when you give an award letter, it must be in the newspapers. You must get that advertisement. You are in charge here. You know that those advertisements might go through your desk. Is it publicly disclosed?
They issued a public statement.
No. The act says you must advertise in the newspapers.
Is it the award or the initial bid?
When you award, the discussions that is on the line is what? That is in the public. That there's a company that was awarded.
Yes.
Are they awarded by mouth? Obviously, when they are awarded, that must become public news.
Okay.
So that amount and the requirement of that award must also stipulate what is the cost of that tender. It's a requirement. It's in terms of the Public Procurement Act. Now we have not seen that. Now we have political parties making noise about how the procurement was done. Now Section 33(5) says that the public policy unit that gives them the right for emergency procurement, if they identify that the emergency was created, they must write to the minister and report these issues. So you see the information that you must now find out in order for you to narrate a proper story. Because without these answers, you would not be able to identify what went wrong. So the first buck stops at why it was cancelled from open bidding to emergency. What was the reason that ECN narrated to the policy unit for that tender to be cancelled? And mind you, if it's at the ECN's level, then it means that tender should be lower than 20 million.
Yeah.
It's in the range of 10 to 20 million. Otherwise, it must move to the central procurement.
20 or 15.
15 million.
Yeah.
Then it must move to the central procurement board.
Yeah.
Now they are having it. But in the stories that we are reading, it's in the range of 60 million. Maybe the prices were inflated once they have given it over, because once you have given the tender to someone, they can also negotiate prices and increase it and all these things. Maybe that's how they did it. But we don't have the real facts. Now, for an elections to be credible, Oviku, you would know that ECN must come out clean and tell us these questions that I have said. They must come out and tell us, this is what we did, this is what we did, this is the journey of the procurement. They must put everything on the public or even buy your page 3-4 pages of Namibian Sun and say, we are narrating the story and all the evidence will be presented there in order for to put the public in confidence that they are not cooking something.
Yeah.
That would be in a public interest or national interest. Yeah. And that could also be the reason why they move it to emergency, because of national interest. Now, how do you go and say it's in the interest of the nation, but you are not telling the nation how you procure, how you came or arrived to that decision? This is where we find ourselves.
Okay. Well, Mr. Kahiriri, we head for a short break and we'll be back to continue the second half of the show. For our viewers, we head for a short commercial break. We'll be back right away.
Exciting news, Namibia. PSTBet has launched its brand new website, www.pstbet.na. To celebrate, PSTBet is offering a 100% bonus on all first deposits when you open your pstbet.na account. That's not all. Bet for as low as $1 Namibian, enjoy the best odds, live cash outs, and you can have 50 events on one ticket. With a new user-friendly interface, max bets up to 10,000 Namibian dollars. Why watch when you can play at pstbet.na? Experience the future of betting. Bet responsibly, not for persons under the age of 18. Visit our Facebook page, PSTBet. You play, we pay.
Welcome back from the short break. Mr. Kahiriri, you mentioned earlier on the issue of bidders and the processes they need to follow when they are aggrieved, whether be it the cancellation of the international bid and so on. Because this process, the bid was halted on the 7th of October, and it was set to close on the 9th of October. So the process did not run the full course. And we've not heard any company coming forth to say, we've submitted our bid before it was cancelled, and we are aggrieved and so on. So what measures or remedial measures are there for those who might have submitted their bids before it was cancelled?
Yes, you see, in this process, whoever wanted to take part in this bid bought tender documents, and they are listed. So they showed interest. The interest does not start at the day of closing. It starts on the day of buying the bid documents, because that shows that you have an interest in the bid. Now you must understand that that's why you have the 30 days before the bid close. Now in those 30 days, what do? You do research, you spend money in order to prepare a proper bid to document to be submitted on the final day. The majority of the people submit on the last day because they don't want their prices to be compromised, because they don't trust entities. Now, I would agree with you that when they cancel it 2 days prior to the closing, the majority, you will probably find 1 or 2 companies that have already bidded or put in their bidding documents before the closing date. But the fact that one bought a tender document and there's a cancellation, then I'm in the game. You understand? So that action of cancellation, if they had proper legal advice, they could have taken that institution on. But they were not aware what is the intentions of ECN.
Yeah.
That is the tricky part, because the Act says there must be an action and you must be notified of the actions. And after you are notified of the actions, you have 7 days from the date you are notified of the actions to challenge it. And there's no other, you see, this Public Procurement Act has a lot of loopholes. And that's why people like us successfully transfer a tender from yourself to someone else, because of the loopholes that are within within the procurement. Obviously, it must be revisited, it must be fixed. There's a lot of loopholes to it. But that is the crack of the matter. Now, if they have not challenged it, where can they go? So what you can challenge is probably the emergency aspect. And the emergency aspect can now be challenged on the basis, does what ECN did classify an emergency? Yeah. And that argument would be driven that, why didn't, if they were not ready to procure it, why didn't they extend the elections? Yeah. That means if it was an emergency and they succeeded in getting an emergency explanation to the policy unit and the minister in order to allow them to do the emergency procurement, means that ECN was not ready to hold the elections on 27 November. They had to beg the minister. But mind you, the very same minister that is giving them, the finance minister, that is giving them leeway to suspend the Public Procurement Act and take the emergency route, is also a player in the election. He's somewhere in the list of the ruling party. And he wants things to be done for the favor of that institutions. You see? And that we got it in the authority of the Itula case at the High Court. Yeah. Because each and every time when ECN wants to do things, they must go to line minister. And we are told ECN is independent. They are not independent. Yeah. They are reliant to others.
Remember, ECN, the commissioners and so on, they were appointed by Parliament, where all parties are represented.
No, even they are appointed by Parliament. Who do they report to on a day-to-day basis?
So someone could also argue who's the appointing authority.
The Minister of Urban and Rural Development. Obviously, it's where ECN is falling in. And now when we do the procurement processes, they have to engage the policy unit, they have to engage the line minister, which is the Minister of Finance. This is still the bureaucracy of, you see, that's where we have a problem with separations of powers. Yeah. Time and again we have said that the Namibian constitution is not well crafted. Those who want to be moderate, those who took our land, those who are sitting on our resources, are saying the constitution is good because it favors them. Now look at that separations of power. Those who are in charge are benefiting for that non-separations of power. For me, it's non-separations of power because ECN ought to be independent. They can't report to a minister. They can't engage with the minister if they want to do their things. They must do their things independently. Yeah. But now, the person you go and ask for extensions and all these things is the person who has an interest in the election. Yeah. So this is what we are left with. And for those who are very interested, you see everybody is very excited. They want to go to Parliament and all. These are the things they must go and deliberate. Because Public Procurement Act is not helping this country. Their procurement that was supposed to be procured for 12 months. There's battles that is going on for 2 to 3 months. The way we have crafted the Public Procurement Act, we have given the board, the Central Procurement Board, too much power. There's no one in this country who can award a tender. Only the Central Procurement Board, if the tender is with them. Yeah. Or the public entity, if the powers are with them. No one else can award a tender in this country. Even the courts can't. What the court can do is direct or compel, but at the end of the day, that decision is only with the board. Yeah. So if you look at that administration, you should have given a structure that is on top of the board, which is like the review panel, the powers also to award the tender. If this one fails, the top structures must be able to say, but this is wrong, this is wrong, this is right, award the tender to who and who. But this is the bureaucracy that we find in our Public Procurement Act.
Yeah. Just as we head to the end of our show, of course, you've been in the political circles actively. What does the current saga do to the build-up to the elections? Not only from a political party point of view, but also from a voter's point of view. What does this do to the entire climate?
It demoralizes demoralize a person who's going to vote. Because at the end of the day, we can campaign, we can do whatever. But if you hear, you see, a person who's voting in Oketherai is going to vote through a mobile polling stations. He cast his vote to whichever party he prefers. Cast it there on the belief that if it reaches Windhoek, where they are counting it, that party that he has voted that's why he's standing in the line. That is the party where his vote is going to be counted to. Now, what if that box is changed with another one, because we do not know who's printing the ballot papers, and it is replaced with another one that was already voted by someone who's a ghost and who's voting for 15,000 people. And that box is placed there to replace the very same number of people who have casted their votes where they belong.
But this year would say, look, they are party agents,
don't
they
say
are
that.
the police officers during those processes.
But it has to do with the credibility of the printing of the ballot papers. That's why I'm bringing this thing up. Now, a voter, when he hears that whether my ballot will be exchanged or not, I want to believe that the ECN, the ballot they give me, is the correct one. It won't be replaced with something else. And that comes to the credibility of the printing. And now, what we are hearing, I don't know, somebody told me that the institution we have handpicked is linked to a corrupt group of people. We don't know whether those assumptions are correct or wrong. But let me tell you, you will not find smoke where there's no fire. People cannot just thump things and then just accuse people without any facts to that effect. So this is a company that was involved in Zimbabwe. I'm reading in Botswana they are going to do demonstrations because they are also having the very same company. But my question is, SADC that sits with this cartel of leadership, all of them who sits in this SADC tribunal and all these things, are using the very same one company. And if a government is telling you, don't buy a gun, you should buy a gun. A government will not tell you something that is beneficial to you to use. So nobody will believe what the government tells you. Now the government is saying that this company is a credible one. And ECN is a government because they are established in terms of the Act of Parliament. Now they are telling us that it's a credible institution. That would be the uncredible institution. Trust me, everywhere you go, everything you are told by the government is the wrong things.
Well, Mr. Kahiriri, thank you very much for your time this evening, and all the best. To our viewers, that's it from the Evening Review team. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place.